Welcome back to the Ranger bed repair. Now, I have already gone ahead and kind of sanded and grinded the big holes away and got them to where I need them to be so I can work on them. And this corner was already bonded at one point and seems to be just poorly. So we're going to give it another shot. But I figured I'll show you what we're starting with, and by the end you'll see how it came out. His backside wasn't as bad. It's just two different kind of spots. Obviously this is the worst of it. This one just starting, you can just see a bubble in the paint, so I figured I'll just grind it down, and I found a hole. So we're gonna do that, and then we'll kind of look at it from this end. You can just try to get it as good as we can. It's just to prevent this thing from rusting out totally on these people for the next couple of years, but just kind of preventative maintenance here, and while I'm here I might as well bondo it and paint it, make it look a little nicer now that they have a new bed in the middle, and we'll get to it. This is kind of the first look at the bondo, and after it's hardened, for the most part, it's not totally clear yet, but pulled out the rear tail light, threw this on. This back needs a little bit more, just to fill out the round. And then coming over to this side, enough to when it completely hardens, we can sand it off and everything will be good. This one might need a hair more, and then it needs a little sculpting up on the seam, but good stuff. We are about to start spraying the inside of the bed now. As you can see, it's all sanded, scuffed up. I ran like a flap disc through the metal, scuff it up just a little bit. I'm hoping the bed line will stick a little better. I'll show you what we did up front. Now, because this doesn't need to be super structural in terms of how this front plate is on, because it's on through the sides, it's not going anywhere. All I did was take spray foam to fill the seam, and then just gonna paint over it. Because that's less structural than it was in the original, because the crossmember came down off the front panel and then bolted through like under the bed, and that kind of kept it there a little more. But the way it is and how rotted that front piece is, I can't bolt it, I can't weld it. I don't have too many options left in terms of securing it, so it doesn't really have to be, because it's not going anywhere either. So that's what I opted to do, and we're just going to run with it. For the coating, we're going to be using Rustoleum Truck Bed Pro Grade, and these have the turbo nozzles, and I like these a lot because they spread very evenly. You can get a lot more out of a can. The problem I have with, I don't know if I have a Krylon one or even the regular Rustoleum one, this goes on pretty good. This goes on better than the Krylon does, in my opinion, but because this turbo nozzle really lets it lay flat and doesn't junk up. If you lay this stuff and you kind of stop for just a split second, because of the textured bedliner, it really looks a lot bigger of a buildup than it really is, and it kind of looks junky. But these turbo nozzles really help it out, and you'll see that in just a minute. This is after just one can of that Rustoleum Turbo. You'll see how much it really gets coverage. Now, when I first did it, I was too close. It's a little too bunchy. Get a little further away, and you get this nice textured look. This is too close. This is a little further away. And the further away you go, the more it covers, but then the more layers you have to do. However, it looks nicer. So, we're gonna go ahead, crack open another can, and hit this other bed side, and then hit this bottom. This is after 2 cans. We have a total of 4 of the turbo ones, and then a couple extras of just the regular, just in case. Looking to get as much of this top done, and then the bottom just regular black, and then some of the Bedliner if we have it.
I think I'm gonna get that other one. Give me that other one.
We actually switched over to the regular can, just to hit that top lip. Because with the turbo, it seems like we are wasting more than we need to, just to get that very sharp edge up there, as most of the front was already covered. Now, since we're doing the spray and Bedliner in the truck bed, we are going to do the tailgate to match. Now, it had this plastic one, and the tailgate ones actually do pretty good because it's vertical, everything runs down. Usually don't get any issues, but we pulled it off, and the same bolts to hold that down are the same ones to hold down the cover for the actual locking or the handle mechanism. So we went and taped that off, a little shallow of what's going to cover, that way if there's any bow in it, you don't see any red past the Bedliner. This is the tailgate and then the mechanism cover right after paint. Just let it dry out and it'll come out pretty flat. Now, we chose to go back over the front with Bondo where I had previously spray foamed. Cut all the spray foam out just so it gives it a little more structure for the paint to go to. But weren't really liking how it was sitting. So Bondo happened, and now that there was something to cover on, all we did was just fill that gap with Bondo and squeegee it. And then there was a little hole that we found come through here, and it didn't cover like I wanted it to, so I threw some Bondo on there. But besides that, the bed came out really nice. This thing looks way better than it did before, and I think they'll like it. So after everything dries, we're going to move on to probably lifting the bed back up, paint the whole underside, and then put the new tabs for the bolts, lower it back on, bolt her down, and take care of the bed sides. Now I'm doing the bed sides last because if we paint it and then try to go over it and they're accidentally going to hit it and then you're going to have to do it again, I do not have a lot of that red paint, so I want to do that last so I can make sure everything else is covered before that so this doesn't get hit at all. We're finishing up taping and plasticking the sides so we can go ahead and paint these wheel arches. And the front of the bed did not work out like we wanted to. When the Bondo dried, tried smoothing out a little bit and that end was peeling, and the Bondo stuck to the spray foam that filled the crack and lifted that whole section up. So put a little more spray foam just to fill the crack, and now I have to wait for that to dry and cure completely so I can cut the top off of that, and then we're just going to paint it like it was before. Besides that, the rest of it seems fine, just that one section lifted. So we're going to paint that, and we've got to paint this little spot here, and we're going to go ahead and paint this. Now, this truck itself is paint code D3, which I forget what red Ford calls it, but paint code D3 from these guys, Harpy Motors, is called a Colorado red. I think it's either Colorado or Cardinal, which is kind of like the code name for this one. Either way, paint code's the same, and we're going to give it a try. It seems to do a little better paint matching this because the red, even though the truck is pretty beat up, the red itself still is in pretty good shape. So I think this is going to be better. I did one on a Dodge before with this duplicolor paint match, and this came out significantly brighter than that Dodge did. Now, I don't know if it's because the duplicolor is a very cheap paint match, where the Harpy was about $45 just for one small can of paint and one can of clear coat, where the duplicolor was like $8 a can. So quite a big difference in price. So I'm hoping that this stuff will do a little better than the duplicolor did. So the first few little spritz, it's coming out pretty good. for our first layer. I think we're going to swap sides, let this dry a little, and then hit it with another layer, and hoping that another coat of red will kind of cover up that Bondo, the whitish off-white color. This side had quite a bit less Bondo going on it, and I'd say it's coming out a lot better than the other side is so far. This one should only take a couple coats and it will cover up pretty fine. This is what the quick little tape and plastic job looks like on this rear corner. Now this corner was previously all bondoed and it was all chipping and rusting underneath, so we just kind of sanded it smooth, the old Bondo, and threw some more on there and then tried to make it nice and rounded. This is after a second coat and starting to look pretty good, even with some light on it. Can't see the contours too bad. You obviously can a little bit, but all things considered, I think that one's looking pretty good. This back one, even after just about 2 coats, is looking really good. This back section needs a little, this side's a little better than the rear part, but the corner's looking a lot better than I thought, being pretty much all Bondo. And this side's looking really good. I have a little more sun in this window, so you'll see it a little better. But this paint's laying pretty smooth, and we're not getting any runs, so we're doing good. While we're giving that paint a little rest to dry, we painted this whole rear section. It was looking good, and then I realized that they swapped out the original hardware for longer screws that accommodated for this plastic cover, and I did not think about this prior, and I do not have a set of sock screws on hand, so we had to throw this plastic piece back in, or else it was just going to be a floppy mess. Now I'm going to probably go ahead and order it, let them know, and swap it out. Maybe even before this paint dries, I'll be able to get my hands on a set so we can take this plastic off and not even think about it, because it looks way better with that spray-on bedline. Here we are, a couple more coats in, and you can still see it a little bit, but all in all, it's looking really good, especially this rear corner. The bottom came out real smooth. It's covering pretty evenly. And making our way back around to this side. This side I'd say is almost done. We're just gonna let it harden up now and throw some clear on it, because you can see as it dries, it's definitely more of a matte compared to the finish, and that is just because the clear coat gives it that shine. So we're gonna let it harden up and throw some clear on there. This is now after a couple layers of the Harpy Motors clear coat that comes along in this paint kit with the red D3 that this Ranger is. And I have to say, just from the glimpse of everything kind of lining up, this paint is going to match very, very, very nicely. Now, you can kind of see, I just sprayed one, so it's has a little more sheen to it than it normally will. Now, when it dries up, it still lays gloss, but it's a little darker, like the paint color. Now, like I said before, this paint color is still in pretty decent shape, and it's not like dramatically sun faded, so this paint should match relatively, as long as it is indeed the same paint code. Now, I mentioned before, but the Harpy Motors can, and this paint is so much better than the duplicolor. Now, you pay about 3 to 4 times as much, at least for this color paint, as if you buy it in the kit like I did. But it lays nicer, the clear coat's nicer, the color matches better, and it seems to cover better than the duplicolor did. Now, this is a smaller area than I did with the duplicolor on a different truck, but within 2 coats of 2 like nice coats, it covered up all the Bondo color. Now, you couldn't even see it anymore. There's probably only 3, maybe 4 coats and spots, and you can't even see any color difference between where the Bondo was. Now, the Bondo job, my sanding job, is not pristine body shop quality. You can still see it in light. However, from what this was, with holes and rust, this looks exponentially better for a very cheap cost that I am doing this for, because I am not a body shop guy. I just have a welder. I can do this, and it saves customers a lot of money compared to going to a professional shop that's going to charge them thousands of dollars. I'm going to let this paint sit up for the night and really harden up, and I'll pull the plastic off in the morning, and we'll check this thing out front to back. Here is the last little walk around of this Ranger before it goes home. Now, we are done painting, and from this angle, you can hardly even tell. I think it came out really good. This Harpy Motors paint came out great. Now, from here, you can see the shiny spot versus the little bit of faded spot. And if you get close, there is a small lip. You can see at the right angle, and you can feel it a little bit. That corner is probably the worst of it, just because of how big of a spot it was and how much it covers. But all in all, in the right light, you can't even tell. And I think overall it looks pretty good. Now, this spray and Bedliner from Rustoleum is awesome. Now, did walk on a little bit. I had socks on. Took off my shoes, so I didn't scuff it up too bad. But there is a couple spots. Now, at that point, it was dry to the touch, and it was fairly hard. And this stuff dries fairly quickly, relatively to spray paint. So I think it'll wash out. However, I don't want to put water on it yet. Kind of just the whole thing in general. But from this angle, you can hardly even tell that cab corner was touched. Not cab corner, the bed corner rather. And coming in, it looks great. Open the tailgate. Everything's cool except for this plastic. So I'm going to have to see what they want to do with it, because I tried taking the plastic off, or I did take the plastic off, painted the whole thing. Tried putting just the mechanism cover back on. Those bolts were a little not wanting to work. I don't understand how they work. I guess I didn't try that hard, but I would take it off and try again. But all my torque sockets that fit this are out on island for work, so they are no longer here for just the time being. Maybe if they don't pick it up till this weekend, I'll mess with it a little longer, but this is it. And I think it came out pretty good. Now, this is just Harpy Motors paint matching in a can, and their clear coat with Rustoleum Turbo Bedliner, and it came out awesome. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed what you saw or have any questions or critiques for me, I would love to hear it in the comment section. Subscribe for more content, and there will be a lot more projects like this, little ones like this, to come in the future, along with the big boy out there. Have a good day, everybody.